Good afternoon, everyone, and we have exciting times here today in office hours. I got my best mentor of all my mentors, Blaine Bartlett. He's there in Whidbey Island, and want to thank you, Blaine, for always being here, pouring into our community. You look great. How's everything going?
Well, it's going well. I'm actually, it's good to be back. I've missed the last two weeks. It's just been crazy, and I'm getting over a bit of COVID. So yeah. I've dodged it for 3 years, and all of a sudden got smacked. It was just.
I told you to borrow some of my blood, brother. It would not have. I'm the last survivor. I wish there was an award for this, but
I know.
I've looked this thing in the face. I've kissed it. I've touched it, and it won't get me. I'm not cursing. Cancel. But more importantly, we're here at the Neff Studios. We're doing a premiere party for 2 Minute Drill, and tomorrow we start filming season 3. I'm glad you're there for office hours on Apple TV. So we're very, very excited about where this show has gone, and I really give a lot of the credit to you as a co-host of mine and a dear friend and mentor. Speaking of mentorship, we have a special guest, one which we both know of, and now we get to know even better. Dr. Akhtar Badshah is here. And I love he's a chief catalyst, which I would love to be, a Catalytic innovator group. And as a catalyst, I always said my mom's superpower was she's probably one of the greatest catalysts, not only for her children, but for her community as a teacher, a principal, a Sunday school teacher, and someone who's empowered women's equity, inclusion rights before they even knew what they were. But it's nice to have someone also that works within the context of not only being a catalyst to others, but the purpose of mindset. And Doctor, welcome to Office Hours, first of all.
Thank you very much, David and Blaine. I mean, I really appreciate being here.
We appreciate having you. And, you know, everyone has their different takes, different perceptions of how important mindset. We all agree mindset. Those who know that we give meaning to all the inflection points and defined moments of our past. We give meaning to everything we see. We can't find outside of us what we don't give meaning inside of us too. But after that basic premise, a lot of people get lost. They don't have the tools in which to help practice a good mindset. And the simpler we understand or can practice mindset, the greater the impact we can have on ourselves, and then thus the greater impact we can have on others. You take a unique, simplified approach to purpose and mindset, and you give workshops that are palatable. They're not 2 weeks long, but they're very transformational. What's the secret sauce of your purpose mindset teachings, and how can we get started in that mindset?
So first of all, I mean, you know, David, it's a very simple thing, right? If we can all just for a moment think about why we exist rather than the how we exist. Right? So why do we exist? Why are we on this little mote of dust that is suspended in a light beam, which is what Voyager saw when it left our solar system? And Carl Sagan wrote about it. Right? That we are this little mote of dust suspended in a light beam. So if we are that unique, every one of us has a why. That's the purpose, right? So I try and get people to kind of dig deep into that through getting them to articulate their strengths and their values. And not focus on weaknesses, not focus on problems, not focus on challenges, but just focus on possibilities and opportunities. And that frame changes the way in which we view the world.
You know, I'm struck by the fact that you have been able to bring this into some of the largest commercial companies, on the planet today, Starbucks, Microsoft, as well as educational institutions, the universities. The question that I have here that comes to mind has to do with most people's assumptions about when they start to seek their purpose. They're looking for an answer, a single Single answer. In my experience, it's an evolutionary quest that doesn't have a static answer to it. Does that match your findings and your experience in the way that this works?
Yes, absolutely. So think about this, right? We've kind of spent the last 2 to 3 decades saying we should move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, which is essentially saying that we should not be focused on what we know, but we should be focused on how we show up and how we do things. So growth mindset is important, right? I mean, we all need to have a growth mindset. But to me, growth is this duality between self and our work. Why do we want to grow? For whom? For your benefit? For your company's benefit? Or are we actually saying that in addition to the two, there has to be a benefit for the common good? And if we can get that intent focused on people, then that intent can continue to evolve. It's not about giving back to society. It's not about doing good. It is just how are you showing up for life every day?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to say, there's an interesting philosophy that I subscribe to, and when I get the benefit, as everyone here on this live is getting, to talk to someone like you that understands, studies, and puts intention, not just what you do, say, think, believe, but also feel into purpose. There's a philosophy of the thoughts about your purpose are your purpose. And you talked about focusing in on, fixed or growth purpose. How do you, number one, do you agree with your thoughts about your purpose are your purpose? And two, if you subscribe to the same philosophy, how would you explain that to an 8th grader? Because I have a very difficult time when my coaching clients say, what do you mean by that? It's one of those coaching areas where I kind of skirt the issue and pretend like I know what I mean by that, but I'm not sure I actually know what I mean by the thoughts about my purpose are my purpose.
And that's a brilliant question, right? I mean, this is the fundamental thing that we are now struggling to do, right? I mean, Blaine, you mentioned that we work with Starbucks and Microsoft and Avanade and big companies, small companies, nonprofits, universities, college students. The big challenge for us is going to be how do we get it to the 8-year-old, the 8th grader, the 7th grader, who actually understand when we say purpose, right? So here is a simple exercise that I actually want people to do. And we are actually getting people to take it to the dining table with their family. Ask folks to write down their strengths, whatever their strengths may be, just 3 strengths. I am a good communicator. I am a good activator. I am a good, pick this enthusiastic, focused. Pick your 3 strengths and then find your 3 values. My values are I'm honest. My values are family. My values are giving back. My values are I'm humble. My values are patient, moral. Write those down. Then focus on it. And through that, then say, what is my purpose? And your purpose essentially is the impact you want to see. It may just be my impact is to be a kind human being every day. Being kind every day is very hard.
Yes,
it is.
Yes, it is.
Right? So now you can actually say, what is the impact you want to see in the world? Why do you want to see it, which is your values? And then how are you going to do it, which is your strengths? And we've done this exercise with thousands of individuals now around the world. And it's fascinating to see what people write down. And to me, it is really not that important what people write down. I don't care whether you have a strength as being patient or your values are humble. It are your values. The important thing is for you to be connected to it and recognize it, and then use it. At least use it once a day, just for yourself, or for your family, or for your community, or for your work. And
Yeah.
that's where you actually now start shifting that focus from being just yourself and your growth to saying, I live with a community of people, and that I can actually become a bridge
Hmm.
to that community.
What you're talking about in the way that I'm hearing and the way that I'm listening is a reconnection, and it flies in the face of Rene Descartes. I think, therefore I am, which means I am separate from everything that I observe.
Yeah.
And when I think about, the ego is formed by contraction, by separation. That's, the ego, the self.
Yes.
And the soul is formed by expansion. And that's what I'm hearing is the catalyst of purpose, of working with purpose, is it begins to make possible that expansion outside of the ego and back into life.
Precisely, because you see, what has happened is, and that we've got so consumed with work. Everything is around our work.
Mm-hmm.
And the pandemic actually showed that people found that is not true. So they're leaving work to seek meaning in their work, but they don't know what meaning they want from themselves. And what I'm trying to do with purpose is to say, first find the meaning for yourself, then connect it to work. And by the way, your work and your purpose are not going to be aligned, fully aligned.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to find connections and strengthen those connections. Then you will get joy, then you will get satisfaction, and then you will make an impact.
Yep.
And speaking of impact, we have to get buy-in from at least the C-level executives of this common good and the facilitation of individual purpose and how that impacts the collaboration and coordination that Blaine teaches so eloquently in corporations, that is essential to pursue a common good or to have a trajectory towards a common good. What are some of the things that you do at Catalytic Innovators Group to, number one, convince the decision makers that this is a possibility or a probability, and then facilitate that downstream for a common good and purpose-driven common good?
So we work at both levels. We have worked with CEOs of companies and their executive leadership team and boards, and they come together and we help them craft their purpose statement, and from that craft a purpose statement for the organization. Most companies have a mission and a vision. They don't have a purpose articulated. So we get them to articulate that and then align it to how people work. Or we start with a group and take it up. And so we work with both levels. I mean, I'm working with deans at institutions and they bring their advisory board and then we take it down. Or we work with groups in a company and then they lift it up. And in both ways, this important thing is that what this is doing is that it actually even gets you a deeper understanding of who you are working with.
Yeah.
You're no longer just seeing somebody as a person, as a man, as a woman, as, Asian, African American, Latino, but you are now actually understanding their deep values, their strengths, and their purpose. And now that connection becomes much deeper. One of the companies that we did this work for, iCertis, it's a unicorn. It's about 5 billion valuation. And on their advisory board was one of the senior executives of Deloitte. And he did this exercise and he said, I've never done something like this. That in 2 hours, you were able to actually get us to go down so deep. And to me, that's the validation, that our exercise is very simple, but it opens up this door.
Yeah.
Now, what you do with that is also important, right? I mean, you can come do this exercise, it's fun, people enjoy it, they go home, and it's the end of the thing. But how do you keep motivating people to continue to follow these principles, continue to apply And then management comes in, HR comes in and says, here is some of the ways we are actually going to help you guide to build it. It's like creating atomic habits, right? Small habits. Start with something small.
Yeah.
So smart. Well,
Good.
we appreciate everything you're doing as a catalyst, as someone who is purpose driven and sharing and empowering others, whether it's at the top or the bottom. What I most find fascinating, which is aligned with my philosophy and strategy in life, is you do it within 2 hours. That these workshops are not 5 days long. That I feel is like the human brain. We give way too much credit to human brains, and if you capture that brain for more than 2 hours, you're already overloading the 3 to 5 things that it can learn, and you've simplified it to a point where an 8th grader or even Blaine or I could learn it, which is incredible, especially as C-level executives at Deloitte. I'm sure they appreciate it as well. Everybody can check out purpose-mindset.org. Akhtar Badshah, he is an extraordinary catalyst and a wise advisor. Thank you for joining us. Come back and join us more. We have a lot more to learn about purpose, and we appreciate you.
Love it. Thank you so much. And thank you very much at Office Hours for hosting me.
Anytime. We enjoyed it. We're blessed to have you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right.
Good stuff.
Blaine, we are, Jeremy and Katie are working on getting on.
Okay.
30 seconds. So, I have to point something out because you're a mastermind, learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. Purpose is part of the soul of business, right? It's a part of
Absolutely.
what we do. But I've always found purpose to be obtuse, even though I have this philosophy of my thoughts about my purpose are my purpose. And it's so nice to get the concrete details of values that we have and strengths. And I really haven't aligned my strengths with my values. I know my values, right? Gratitude, empathy, accountability, effective communication. I do know my daily practices. I know my non-negotiables, but I've never added strength into the mix. And I think I'm going to go back and reassess and inventory. I know, should we bring Arena in first? Okay, let's bring our third guest in for a second. That's what I like about the show. We're very flexible here. And
we dance well.
Irina is in the house and she's early. Thank goodness. She's filling the spot right on time. Irina.
Awesome. David, great to meet you. Great to be on here. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, we're blessed.
Great to have you here.
Yeah, we are blessed. Co-founder and managing partner of Galactic Fed. And your philosophy or your opinion of life, it just made me feel so good. I had to have you on. You talk about how traveling makes you a better business leader. Now, wonder people think I'm a better business leader because I travel 200 days a year.
Yeah.
And
man, it makes a difference.
It does. When COVID hit, when the pandemic hit, Blaine and I realized, and we looked since I've been 24 years old, I traveled over 200 days a year until the pandemic hit.
Yep.
And Blaine had, I'm not going to age him, but I think you had more years than I did under your belt of that kind of travel.
Yeah. I've got over 5.5 million air miles. It's it's just
unreal. Crazy. When have you started spending them all? I feel like that takes a lifetime just to spend.
Yeah,
that's what Africa benefited greatly. That's what Africa's for. They dig into those miles really fast. The Middle East as well. But Galactic Fed, as a remote digital marketing firm, what is it about travel that's made Blaine and I great leaders, or other people more diverse and more empathetic? And what are some of the things that we learned that we may not even be conscious of?
No, totally. That's a great question. I mean, I've been to about 40 countries mostly in my 20s. I'm 34 now. And even long before starting Galactic Fed, I feel like travel really laid the groundwork, much as I'm sure both of you can resonate, sort of in how I relate to and sort of step lightly through the world. I feel like with travel, I'm able to connect better with people of various walks of life. I'm also better able to keep a humble state of mind and see that, we're all facing our own unique struggles everywhere. And it really is a very humble experience. And within the business context, a few things to answer your question that I've picked up is, especially on the recent trip back, you mentioned Africa. Back in the winter, my business partner Zach and we went on this 3-month sort of odyssey across Africa, and it ended up in the Congo, where we traveled to the most remote lake in the world. And getting to that point required us like really taking stock that we have built a company where we can take vacation and not feel like we're coming back to a fire. And we were very grateful to see that our team can truly solve and problem solve without our presence. But we also learned that success happens in preparation. I would say that would be my biggest lesson taken from that. Just like being able to lay a groundwork within our company, and having that space that allowed us to then be able to travel remotely. That's a big one. Also, just you are as good as your gear, without a doubt. Your success greatly depends on your gear.
Yep.
Case in point, if my mic were broken right now, I would not be succeeding right now. So
yeah, we're going to talk
to
Jeremy. We're going to talk to Jeremy after you, and we'll see what happened about their gear. And thank goodness you were early, because I can see them sitting in the green room, and Katie and Jeremy are like, we should have had better gear. We could probably get on here.
Exactly. I'm struck by something you said, Irina, that I think is really important. And it has to do with this leadership conversation and how traveling makes you a better business leader. And what you mentioned was humility. If you're going to be a successful traveler, you actually have to be humble.
And vulnerable.
I mean, you truly do.
There's no way around it. There's literally no way. And you have to expose yourself to the unknown of the world.
Vulnerability, humility.
Exactly. Yes. And it's a wonderful experience. So I recommend it for everybody. It's like better than school.
There's variance today compared to, because I've been traveling as Blaine probably longer than you've been alive, and me almost, for so many places in so many years. But one of my philosophies, Colin O'Brady wrote a book, 12-Hour Walk, and he suggests everybody spend time by themselves with nothing else. And it's not necessarily walking for 12 hours. It's being by yourself for 12 hours. And, I find that even today, traveling allows me to be by myself. And I get the option, but it also allows me something, and this is a variant of my own opinion in business, that I enjoy immensely today that I could not enjoy 20 years ago, going back and forth from Korea and other places, is that when I'm walking on the Masai Mara in Kenya, I take great comfort in that I can have a minimum amount of time every day to do activity I get paid for. I can do a coaching call with the zebras. I can check in with the other leaders in my company for 5 minutes and make a positive impact in a quick call. And I also get directions places, and I don't waste my travel time because, I'm lost. Now, on the other hand, sometimes when you're lost, you find shit that nobody else finds because you get lost. But, where, someone that understands as a leader, a business leader via travel, where is your positioning on the accessibility that we get in the most remote places? Sometimes, 5G works better in the middle of the Masai Mara than it does in Manhattan.
I can vouch for this, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
But what's
that
your
exact
position?
point? It's so true.
As a business leader, do you need to go off the grid? Because I personally do not need to get off the grid. I need to stay on the grid for a minimum amount of time, just like I need to vacation every day for a minimum amount of time. Where someone that is an expert at this, do you fall in that spectrum or opinion?
That's a great question. I mean, let me start by quickly touching on what you said earlier about solitude, because that resonates a lot. There is this quote that came to mind. I don't remember who said it. Someone who's long dead.
Give me credit.
About how yes, about
David
how a lot
Meltzer
of the.
said, go ahead.
I might have been Rousseau, but I don't remember about how many.
Rousseau, Meltzer. What's the difference?
That's right. He said something about how like, so
Michelangelo,
many.
Meltzer, what's the difference? Both talented guys, right?
Absolutely.
Right, Blaine?
Yes.
Absolutely.
We'll get this up on AZ quote after the show. But he mentioned his quote basically was that so many of the problems in today's world are the result of a man not knowing how to sit alone in a room by himself.
Hmm.
I love it.
Yep.
So it's wonderful to cultivate that relationship with ourselves, and that's a hard thing to do. You know, we are a very extroverted society, especially in the States. You know, that's very treasured. So it's definitely good to take that time, and travel really does enhance that, especially when you're solo traveling.
You
Uh,
know, and, yeah, reality is defined not by things; it's defined by connections, and the primary
mm,
connection is the one that I have with myself.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't eliminate the noise. I don't have that connection. The signal to noise ratio is too loud to really connect. So for me, I'm going to go back to the traveling meme here. I get to be by myself. To your point, David, I'm not isolated, but I actually get to quiet the internal noise to the point where I can actually connect with something
mm.
meaningful. Yeah.
Totally. And to your question about you know, balancing time on and off the grid, I am a big fan of disconnecting, especially on the weekends, just unplugging completely, shutting off all access to the internet and social media. Just I think it's wonderful to again to your point of quieting that internal voice and just being able to be in the present. But I love the remote work world because you know, to touch on what you said earlier, you can really take that mini vacation every day, and you can
Mhm.
also take that hard, you know, ultra heavy work session when you can balance things out and call the shots on how that schedule can look like. You can really play to your strengths as an individual as opposed to a pre-prescribed 9 to 5.
Yeah, I think at its core, I am that, and then also I believe this, and those are two discoveries
Mhm.
through travel to find what I am and what I believe, and being able to
Mm.
have the mix and the nuance aligned with your values. I always say, if someone, like me that meditates every day, I probably have a less of a need for connection to get off the grid, and I understand people that don't and why they need to get off the grid, and of course my ego when I was young is like looking down upon people. Oh, you need to get off the grid, you're not living a balanced life. But
Mhm.
that's not true either.
What's
And
wrong with you? But that was
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I don't throw
probably
stones anymore.
they were less before TikTok. Now we're in the age of TikTok, so
Now
it's
I'm in the age of
impossible
what's
to.
wrong with me, and keep on getting better. So Irina, please come back and join us. We absolutely subscribe to the Galactic Fed, traveling and becoming great business leaders and making remote work more practical and popular than ever, even in the marketing end of what you do. Please reach out to her, galacticfed.com. Please come back and join us again as well.
Thank you so much, David. It's been a pleasure speaking
You're
to
Great
you.
awesome.
having you on the show, Arena.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Wow. I love this show because it's so thought-provoking, and
Yeah.
it's so nice. These are brilliant people that have different ways to look at it. I'm thinking about, our team's been able to put a 4-person lineup on a Thursday together that, in the past people would pay to go to a theater to watch, which is really nice. But speaking of which, I'm glad we got our Galactic Technology back together. Look at this charming couple
There we
here,
go.
Katie and Jeremy Neilson.
Katie and Jeremy.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Co-founder and president of Assure.co, and CEO of Assure, of course. And you guys have structured live events to facilitate and empower people with our connection. That's the way that I see it. And help facilitate what I think is really important is finance to the underprivileged. And there's a great inequity in finance. And the statistic, Jeremy and Katie, that you probably know that blows my mind is that 73 or more % of the earth is women or minorities. And yet only 3% of the money financing capital, 3%, Blaine, and it's going down, not up, by the way,
Yeah.
3% goes to women and minorities, and over 73% of the earth. And the numbers, the other number, the green number that I look at, that people who have equity, inclusion, and awareness in their businesses, women-led companies, far exceed the white middle-aged man in the way that they lead a company today. So it's not even as if they have some sort of data to support why they're not being funded. And so I wanted to start there, because you guys do so much for underrepresented founders, to talk about what you do and what we can do to help support this essential cause that you're supporting with your company, Assured.
Yeah, would you like me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things that we have done is tried to educate. One of the things that you mentioned earlier was Assure Structured Live, that educates on special purpose vehicles, which is a tool used to invest into startup companies, and that educating female founders, educating female investors, especially. Female investors want to invest into female founders, and that's where they're going to get the biggest support is from those female investors. And so we have to educate those female investors on how to participate, what the words mean, how all the details work whenever you're investing into a startup.
Yeah, and when you invest, you're either going to go into your pocket and pull out a pile of money, or you're going to go through a structured vehicle. Those are the only two ways you can invest. And if you're not independently wealthy and can write very large checks, or if you don't feel really, really comfortable about a particular opportunity, you want to go into a syndicate. You want to go with other people. You want to follow somebody in. And so what really was stopping a large amount of money going into individuals was the structure, which was that legal, the tax, the accounting, the unknownness of it, the compliance. So what we've done is we've taken all that heavy expense of structure of these structured vehicles and brought that price way, 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 way down. So now anybody from anywhere can really organize an SPV and invite accredited investors to participate.
Really?
If you were, and before you're writing $100,000 checks, now you could be writing $2,000 or $3,000 checks, which is meaningful money. But that 90% decrease now opens up the opportunity to so many more people to support, get excited, and have passionate about other people's opportunities and businesses.
And having to be able to participate slowly, not having to put in a big check immediately, also helps them to test out the waters, to see which companies they like the best, to be able to examine the due diligence and see which ones they would like to participate in, the investors would like to participate in. Gives them more, it opens it up more to more investors.
Which is fascinating to me, given the amount of funds that you have under management. You've got over $7 billion in assets under management. Is that correct?
Oh, actually 12 billion.
12 billion. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, my team's slipping.
Yeah. I guess somebody gave you the wrong number.
But well, the 2000. I mean, these small. I mean, I say small. They are relatively small investments to build this kind of a portfolio and to make this sort of a process and resource available, I think, is just brilliant. I truly do. The idea of bringing outsourced administrative and transaction services to private investment is an interesting concept. How did I guess this would be a question for you, Katie. How did this actually gel for you as a business? What do I want to say here? As a way to structure the business, the offering?
Well, as Jeremy mentioned earlier, there are 5 expertise that you have to have in order to do a special purpose vehicle. You have to have banking, you have to have compliance, you have to have legal, accounting, and tax. And so you have to have all of those. And in order, in the former I guess life of doing
pre-Assure life.
Pre-Assure life. you had to go to separate, different, providers to do that. So what we did is we put everything into a one-stop shop.
Right.
And we know that people don't want to have to deal with 5 different providers. Those organizers want to go to one place and want all the expertise in one place. And they want to focus on picking the best deal. They don't want to focus on doing the administration.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not surprising to me, the billions of dollars under management. It's not surprising to me, the equity in the program and the amount of people that participate. How is Web3 enhancing the capabilities of what you do? Because I think with the democratization of investment and the fractionalized ownership and the capabilities of authenticity of Web3, it seems a natural fit with what you guys are doing. Is there any plans to implement Web3 type of opportunities for people?
Yeah, Web3 hasn't yet landed in the structuring world. We've been watching it very closely. We've participated in it. We've dabbled in it. We work with various companies that are in it. But at the end of the day, until the regulators really embrace it, you're going to have to do it twice. So meaning, if you did do a Web3 and you used all that technology and it's amazing and fast and simple, you're still going to have to step back and do those things that regulators require you to do. And so we have not yet seen that really assist and help us, but we can see it. And I believe it will happen. We had one of our clients say that, Web 2 or just the internet was an informational revolution, and Web 3 is a financial or banking revolution. And, banking and money and the regulatory around that's a little more sticky than just information, right? What people think, what's going on in the world. And so it's a little more sticky to unstick that, but we do believe that will be something, but we haven't yet seen it.
Amazing.
Where might blockchain enter into this? And I'm identifying that as separate from Web3 at this point, but just kind of where do you see a blockchain play in what it is that you're working with right now?
So blockchain play can be helpful it's really identity, right? So that's what blockchain is. And when you do structured vehicles, your identity is sitting as a owner or a member of a structured vehicle, of a SPV. So if you can place that up on the blockchain, it becomes much easier to trade or sell because you can move that seat a lot easier. The other way blockchain can be helpful is identity, or KYC AML. Are you who you say you are? Those two things could be very advantageous. The KYC AML, there's very sophisticated technology companies today, so you're only getting a marginal benefit if you go blockchain for identity. But the trading, if you will, or kind of the digitizing of your membership interest is far more interesting. But then you kind of have those regulators that are still hovering, wanting to make sure, what's going on here. So we're seeing a couple of companies participate in that trading piece.
We actually looked into it pretty heavily in 2017 and 2018, but it's just not, the technology wasn't there. It just needs the infrastructure to be built out more. And as Jeremy said, the compliance or the regulators need to have that in place as well in order to be able to utilize it.
Yeah. And lastly, one of the key components or capabilities that you guys share with people is a variety of mentorship. And I know Blaine and I participate in the best we can of being mentors, coaches, and teachers, all with different focuses and abilities. But beyond, your podcast obviously has a mentoring capability of Assure podcast with you, Jeremy, as well. But you do a lot of weekly videos, interviews. I think you have a series on venture. What type of mentoring with that much money in play are you guys doing, and how important is that mentoring?
So I'm gonna bring up one of our affiliates, which is Boom Startup. Boom Startup is a virtual accelerator. It is inclusive virtual accelerator. It allows all to participate, all founders to participate. And what we have there are mentors that come in and assist those founders all through the program in order to help them be the best company so that they can receive capital. That's the largest way that I see that we are doing that, and helping to mentor those in the industry.
Yeah, we just find that there is complexity: legal, tax, accounting, banking, compliance. There's so much kind of there that if you don't provide mentoring, either the sales team being very educated, the service team being very educated, having podcasts, having great blogs. We have Assure Analytics that's kicking out more reports and stuff. Without that mentoring piece, people just can't quite get over the hump. And we want them to get over the hump because this structure allows for so much flexibility. It allows for people who can't raise a venture fund or might not have a deep network to use these structures to raise money. If you just kind of really step back and you say, well, if the fees to do a structured vehicle are hundreds of thousands, that means I need to raise $3 million to even cover those fees to make it worthwhile. But if the fees are $5,000, $7,000, $10,000, now I only need to raise 50,000 or 100,000. And if you're somebody that doesn't come from a certain network or background, you may only have a few people that can write $10,000 checks. And if you can't do a structure like this, then you're kind of cut out of raising that money.
Yeah, if you didn't go to Stanford, it's a good place to go, that's for sure. And we'd love to have a whole Boom Startup episode on 2-Minute Drill, our Apple TV pitch only competition, and help support with the $50,000 of cash and prizes that we give to each winner each episode. That's what we're doing here today, premiering that and launching that here in the NEF studios. So incredible, over 12 billion in assets, unbelievable. The co-founders of Assure.co. What a great vehicle to use, known as Utah's Fund of Funds. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Jeremy, Neilson, for joining us. We certainly appreciate your expertise, but more importantly, appreciate everything you're doing in the space of equality and inclusion for putting capital into the most powerful people's hands so that they can improve our way of life. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Thanks
for having us.
Nice meeting you.
Great having you guys on the show.
Come back again. We enjoyed it. Thank you. Awesome.
Okay.
Last but not least, nobody's let us down yet. So we got Dr. David here. David Spiegel's in the house, co-founder of Reverie Health, and also a professor. See, I had to bring up Stanford right when I had a Stanford professor.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Look, I apologize, David. Unmute yourself, but I apologize. But I got a chip on my shoulder. Stanford's my favorite school. I wanted to go there for undergrad. I probably wasn't quite up to snuff, and I got rejected. But like the majority of people, when I applied to law school, I probably was up to snuff, but I fell into the majority of people that they didn't let in. And I'm just blessed to every once in a while get to visit the campus and speak to the student body and at least have a little bit of a touch of brilliance at an incredible university. So thank you for joining us. And
you're most welcome. Thanks for visiting the campus. That's great.
It's an amazing place with amazing people, and you're an amazing person.
I love it.
What I love about, I'm a big sleep person. I have a sleep coach for 16 years. I always tell people it's my favorite mentor and my favorite coach. A third of my life is taken care of. As we talked about earlier in the show, I travel so much that it's changed my life.
Great.
But you really, to me, I think, you're addressing habits, and we are an aggregate of our habits, and utilizing a self-hypnosis app and several other things. I would like to start with the problem with habits that I see and see how you address or you see the same problem. I think the problem with habits is coherence. I think people don't remember what they want to do and they don't do it. And there may be let's say thank you, for example. Like, I get more credit for teaching people to say thank you before they go to bed and when they wake up than probably anybody on earth. And I learned it when I was 3, but I have to tell you, as much as I talk about gratitude and how thank you will change your life, guaranteed, every physicist, quantum physicist, metaphysicist, thought leader that I've ever met will tell you the power of gratitude. Every great political, religious, spiritual, theoretical leader and professor at Stanford will not disagree with me that gratitude's so important. But I forget to say thank you. How can we help people? How can we help people remember what they want and to act upon it?
Well, what hypnosis does, what we teach people on the Reverie interactive digital app, is to focus on what you're for, focus on what you want, and narrow the focus of attention. You know, people who use hypnosis say the worst thing you can say to someone is don't think about purple elephants, right? What do you So, if you keep your focus on what you're for, you're more likely to get there. Hypnosis involves a narrowing of the focus of attention, like getting so caught up in a good movie that you forget you're watching the movie and enter the imagined world. Dissociation, putting outside of awareness things that would ordinarily be in consciousness. And what we're calling cognitive flexibility. You can see things from a new point of view, change your mindset. And what you're teaching people when you say, if you want to go to sleep, focus on gratitude, say thank you, you're also focusing on the kinds of thoughts that help your body relax. Mm-hmm. If you're angry or fighting, or you made the mistake of reading that lousy email at 11 p.m., and you think, oh God, because we're such pathetic physical creatures, we're used to thinking that the only threats we need to survive is to fight or flee. And so we respond even to non-physical threats, to things that make you angry or upset or disappointed, as if they were physical threats. So you tense your muscles, your heart rate goes up. That's not a good way to go to sleep, because to sleep, as you know, you need the self-soothing parasympathetic nervous system to take over, not the sympathetic one. So what we teach people to do in the Reverie Insomnia app is to have people focus on, imagine your body floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or floating in space. Get your body comfortable, and then picture some pleasant place you like to be. So already your body's feeling better, you're feeling better. We find that people can reduce their level of stress by about a third in a few minutes, and then deal with the problem. But picture it as if you're watching a home movie, not as if you're in it physically. And that allows people to focus on what they're for, what they want, and keep their body comfortable and let that tension float away. And the next thing you know, you'll find yourself asleep.
Yeah, the idea of disassociating, taking that internal and moving it outside so that it's not literally physically experienced as being part of me any longer.
That's exactly right. And what we found, you've got it. We found that when people go into a state of self-hypnosis, we've got them in the MRI scanner looking at activity in their brain. They turn down activity in the salience network. It's called the dorsal anterior cingulate gyrus. It's the part of your brain that you hear a loud noise, you think, oh my God, what's happening? You turn down activity there. You can just allow yourself to focus on what you're paying attention to and not get distracted by things that would normally be threatening. And so that's literally a way to use your brain better, to get your body more comfortable, and then allow yourself to think more clearly and relax and get to sleep.
I love the concept of the brain compared to the mind. When I shifted the paradigm of I am already happy, healthy, wealthy, and worthy, what am I doing to interfere with it, instead of the first part of my life trying to search for more health, happiness, wealth, and worthiness and create interference. And one of the key indicators, and I'm not a doctor, and nor do I want to be one, but more importantly,
okay, I got it.
There seems to be an obvious reward system that I've learned about, and it's just simply, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins versus cortisol. And if I can understand what creates those great rewards that, whatever you believe in gives to us for appropriate mindset, and it is appropriate mindset that gives us these great healers or ease, compared to, like you said, the 11 o'clock email that puts us at dis-ease and creates cortisol, which doesn't help anything other than, how can we understand and I know you wrote a book with your father, Trance and Treatment, which is kind of the basis of how building an app someday, and your dad's probably like, what the heck? How did
where'd you go wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But, how does this reward system, play into self-hypnosis of creating a reward instead of dis-ease?
Well, you focus on what you're for. So, for example, when we help people with pain, we tell them don't fight the pain, filter the hurt out of the pain. The strain and pain lies mainly in the brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the brain decides what a signal coming up from your hurt ankle really means. And you can learn, for example, people do things like take a warm bath when they have chronic pain. You say, okay, in your imagination, take a warm bath. You're floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, filter the hurt out of the pain. And people can literally reduce the amount of pain they feel. I had a young woman who was pregnant, had bad lower back disease. They couldn't give her drugs because of the baby. They put in a nerve stimulator that didn't work. In hypnosis, in a few minutes, she was able to imagine she was floating in a bath, filter the pain out from 8 out of 10 to 3 out of 10. And she opened her eyes and she looked angry. And I said, what are you angry about? She said, why are you the last doctor I got sent to instead of the first? And so often, we do the extreme things first. We get people addicted to opioids and we don't teach them how to use their own resources to control the way they respond to pain. They feel pain. Another example, when I get people to stop smoking, I don't tell them don't smoke. That's like, again, don't think about purple elephants. I say, think of your body as a trusting, innocent child or a pet. Would you ever consider putting tar and nicotine into your baby's lungs or your dog's lungs? No. So for my body, smoking is a poison. I need my body to live. I owe my body respect and protection. So you don't feel you're depriving yourself of something. You focus on what you're for. And the narrowness of attention in hypnosis allows you to take that in and change with it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, David. In my experience, more people are far clearer about what they are going to lose than they are about what they're potentially going to gain.
That's right.
And that becomes the default. They can't even imagine the gain.
So immediately it becomes a struggle. I'm giving something up. How terrible. Instead of saying, look, I'm finally being a good parent to my own body. I'm teaching myself how to better protect and respect my body. You feel good about that right away. Instead of fighting on, I have this urge, I can't do it. And you just get stuck, instead focus on what you're for. And in Reverie, we teach people to concentrate intently on that novel idea.
Beautiful. I have a quick question as a last one, and it's more personal in nature.
Sure.
Extremely interested. You wrote a book with your father, which is a rarity for most people. And your dad also was a psychologist. Psychiatrist, sorry. But my note-taking today is horrible. So they got 7 billion, 12 billion, psychologists, tomatoes. Anyway,
right.
But I'm just the wizard behind the curtain. So I'm just reading shit. I don't know anything, which is probably why Stanford didn't accept me. But more importantly, I'm a father. Most importantly, I'm a father.
Yeah.
And I feel as if I have been blessed to be around some extraordinary people like you. And I want to share and inspire my 4 children. And I'm always fascinated when a child takes such a great interest in what their parents know, instead of resisting that as well. Was there something that your father did as a parent to allow you to get over the resistance of what most children have, which is, and I've had one of my kids in college tell me a great quote and tell me, Dad, this is amazing. This sounds like something you would say. And I said, that's because I actually said it and it's in my book. And your professor is quoting me. You didn't listen to me, but all of a sudden you're going to listen to him.
Right.
What can we do to reduce that resistance? Because you've actually experienced it personally.
Well, I have. It's even worse than you think, because both of my parents were psychiatrists and psychoanalysts. And they told me that I was free to be any kind of psychiatrist I wanted to.
Any color you want, as long as it's black.
All I heard was doctor, lawyer, or failure. So we're almost
right. But you know what? The dinner table conversations were fascinating. And I went through the usual thing. I remember my father telling me once, sometimes you're the freest when you're making the choice that looks the least free. And I just found myself drawn to people with problems. I took a vocational preference test and the social worker looked at me and said, David, you love people. And I went to medical school. I liked surgery because I could talk to people while I was suturing them up and things like that. But I kept, it was like I tried everything else and I just kept being drawn back into it. And the first time I hypnotized a girl with asthma, and within 5 minutes, she wasn't wheezing anymore. She wasn't crying. Her mother wasn't crying. I thought, you know what? I just got to pursue this. It's just, I was drawn to it despite my best efforts to do something else.
Well, Dr. David Spiegel, thank you so much for all you do. And
thank you, David.
Being a healer is a great capability. And one of the things that I do for healers like you is teach you how to receive, because a lot of times our doctors and teachers, they feel guilty or shameful receiving, and yet they've been given the greatest capability. So we want to make sure that people support our greatest healers. So please, everyone, check out Reverie. I certainly will.
Thank you.
Please
do.
Habit nut. Please come back and join us. After I use the app, I'm going to have you come back so I can give you an experiential question.
I'd love to hear it. And we just released the Android version this week. The iOS version is out there. So we hope people try it. It's my legacy project. I want what I've learned to be available to everybody.
Well, I've just got to say, I absolutely love the name Reverie, associated with anything medical, anything health-oriented.
It's true. It's not common.
Perfect.
Well, your parents have given us a great legacy as well. So
Thank you. Well, I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Come back and visit.
Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. All right, we got 4 minutes before this party starts, Blaine. So what's your takeaway for the day?
I'm going to anchor it back into the very first guest that we had talking about purpose. When Akhtar was organizing his piece on the show, is all around purpose and how it's a discovery process. But all of our guests, in some way, shape, or form, came back to this ineffable thing that we call purpose and how it allows me to connect to life. Whether it's Dr. Siegel saying I just couldn't get away from it. I just kept coming back. There's something that calls inside, and that whole idea that I mentioned, that ego is formed by contraction. Ego moves me away from living and from life, and the soul is formed by expansion. And the form that expansion takes is in concert with how much purpose I'm actually living my life with. So, that's kind of what I'm taking away from this. This has been I've loved this show. I've loved these guests today. This has been great.
Crazy, right? And how blessed are we to have that? And for me, the last guest, had the impact on me of strain and pain exists in the brain. In other words, what are you doing to interfere with your ease? It exists in your mindset. And all 4 guests obviously deal with the limitations that we create, the pain and strain that we put upon ourselves. And if we could just identify it and get out of our own way, we all would be better off. Well, Blaine, you are missed here today. You'll be missed here tomorrow in Vegas, but you're always welcome and always well thought of. My thoughts about your purpose and mine are shared. Our identities are shared. Everybody go to learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. He's my mentor and he should be yours. Thanks again for joining me, my friend. Have a happy and healthy day.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great party.
I will. That's not a problem. That's my middle name. Good parties.
Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you, my friend. All right. Everybody, I'm going down here to get on the red carpet. Check us out. It is launch of season 4 of 2 Minute Drill today. You can check it out on Apple TV tomorrow. It'll be up there. Season 4, season 3 filming in Vegas tomorrow. We got so much going on. We are so blessed. If you need anything, if it's free, it's we. So email me, David@dmeltzer.com. That's my first name, David, at my first initial, last name, Meltzer, like seltzer with an M.com, David@dmeltzer.com. Most importantly, be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds. We'll see you. Thanks.